Hello, everyone. It's good to see familiar faces. So today I'm gonna present one study of my PhD. So before I begin, I just would like to give the audience who don't really know me or haven't been working with me a little bit. I'm a part-time PhD student and also the health economics researcher. And I have been working with the previous CRE cerebral palsy, and I got the PhD scholarship from the previous CRE cerebral palsy. And on the CP Achieve, I will be working in the health economics side together with Rob Carter, who is my PhD supervisor. So in my PhD, I have 5 supervisors. I have Professor Kathy Mihalopoulos, I have Professor Dinah Rediho, I have Professor Rob Carter, Associate Professor Gang Chen, Associate Professor Brandon Mulhern. And my study that I'm going to talk about today is looking at the outcome measurement or the health measurement for the kids with cerebral palsy. And I'm looking in a development of health state classification system from CPCHILD. So I know that there are so many terminologies that you might not know what it is about. Start from the health state classification system. What is it actually? So basically the health state classification is a questionnaire that asks about health. It consists of different dimensions that deemed to be important to health. For example, here you can see the one on the right-hand side. It is the most commonly used health state classification system. It's called EQ5D. In the EQ5D, there are 5 dimensions: mobility, self-care, usual activities, pain and discomfort, anxiety and depression. And in each dimension, there are 3 rating scales, range from no problem at all to some problems and have extreme problems. So if someone answer the questions of this EQ5D, they're going to be a combination of the 5 times 3, which made up to the 243 distinct health states that can be measured using these short questionnaires. So this one is called the descriptive system, which later on will be converted into a score ranged between 0 to 1, where 0 represents death and 1 represents full health. And this one can be further used to calculate quality adjusted life years, that it is a common outcome measures for the cost effectiveness studies. So in order to get the score of 0 to 1, there is another component, which is the algorithm, the mathematical formula that will converted all the answer of the questionnaires into the numbers. So when I started my PhD, there was no cerebral palsy specific descriptive system. There are generic descriptive system that can use for any conditions, but what it has been found, more and more literatures say that the generic instrument might not be sensitive enough to a condition specific. So when I'm doing my PhD, there's no cerebral palsy specific descriptive system, but in the past 2 years, there was a development of the health state classification from CPQOL. So I used the CPCHILD to develop a health state classification then. So if you don't know what is the CPCHILD is an abbreviation for Caregiver Priorities and Child Health Index of Life with Disability. It is an instrument to assess the health status, comfort, well-being, and ease of caregiving of children with severe cerebral palsy having GMFCS level 4 and 5. So it contains 6 domains and 36 main questions, but some domains, they consist of the additional questions as well. For the main questions, they have 6 to 7 rating scales, and for the additional questions can be up to 4 rating scales. So all these combinations just make the CPCHILD can measure over 3.5 million health states. And in the health state classification, we don't need that many health states. So that's why this study is aimed to identify which health state that we can keep and can represent the original CPCHILD. Okay, so I am lucky enough to get the source of data from UNI. who is the developer of the CPCHILD. So he provided me two sources of data. One is from the CPCHILD validation study, and another one is the multinational trial looking at the hip surgery. And of these, I have to filter those participants who have GMFCS 4 and 5, and those who have age between 5 to 18 years old, just to make it complied with the manual of the CPCHILD. And then as a scientific researcher, we would like to get the developed data set, and we want to validate with another data set. What I did is I separate equally from the two data set into the developed data set and validate data set, and make sure that I have equal representation of the original two source of the study. And not just only that, I also looking at the data set that contains only the GMFCS level 4 and those who are having only the level 5 as well. So what did I do with each data set? There are so many steps getting involved. So the first step is to identify the latent dimension of the CPCHILD using the factor analysis. I'll show you a little bit later on of the prelim result. And after that, there is a big block of the Rasch analysis that apply in different steps. So for example, looking at the dimension step, after we identify the latent dimension. When I said latent dimension, it can be similar or different from the predefined or the existing dimension of the CPCHILD, And then we can also identify which items that has a good factor loading under each dimension as well. And at the dimension level, we use Rasch analysis to test the dimension within to test the item within the dimension and see which one is compatible with the ability of the respondents. So Rasch analysis is a technique that looking at the ability of the respondents and also the difficulty of the equations at the same time. So this technique allow us to find which questions match the ability. It's not too hard or it is not too easy for the respondents to answer. And then not just only that, the Rasch analysis can give you a predictive fitting models. And we can see that the fit model and the observed model, which one goes well together, whether the observed is fit or it's not fit. We're also looking at the rating scale reduction as well. As I mentioned earlier, that the CPCHILD, sometimes they have the up to 7 rating scale, and some rating scale are quite similar, for example, fairly often and a few times. So I also explore if it is possible that we can collapse similar rating scale together. And after that, we do all these steps, we come up with the candidate items that I will present today. I'm not going to look at the final dimension as yet because they need some other input information to consider what would be selected for the final use. Those information include item correlation and item importance. And not just only that, we're also looking at the clinical experts and experience as well. All right, okay. Let's look at the preliminary, the first thing after the factor analysis. So in the left-hand side, it is the original dimensions. It contains altogether 63 items. As I mentioned earlier, we have the main items in some dimensions. They have the additional items as well. And all of this made up to 63 items from the original 6 dimension. But after I test the factor analysis, I came up with 7 latent dimensions with the total of 52 items. Okay, this is the Rasch analysis. I know that it sounds very complicated, but I just try my best to explain it in a very easy language. So, so in the Rasch analysis, on the left-hand side, it is a graph show the bar chart of the distribution of the kids who answer to the questions and their score under each dimension. And on the left-hand side, represent the items under that dimensions. For example, in this one, we have altogether 7 items, and each item they have 3 rating scales. This one is already collapsed, you can tell. And then the rating scale can be 1, 2, or 3, ranging from the non-severe to the more severe or no problems to more problems. So what we are looking for is on the vertical bar here, or vertical axis here. It is the item on the logit model. So what we are looking for is at the logit 0 line, which is the reference line. If the person or the item falls above the logit line, 0 line, it means the person or the item is too difficult to the respondents to answer. If it falls below, it is too easy. So from this example, in general, it seems like the difficulty of the items and ability of the person who answered the questionnaire are quite compatible. So that is a good one. But it is not always the case, because some domain, the distribution of the people can be down below here, and the item can lie up above the line. So that represents that the items difficulty and ability of the respondents are not matched. That will be filtered out from the preliminary result. And I talked about the rating scale reduction. For example, for this item on the left, there are 4 rating scales. The 0 represents severe in the red line. The 1, which is the moderate, represent in the blue line. The pink one is the mild, and the black one is the none. The ideal one is seeing a quite nice separate and distinguishable lines of each response level. And they're supposed to have quite a same height as well, representing the proportion of the people who answer that one. So it have a nice separation ability. But sometimes it is not the case. You can see how messy it would be on the right-hand side. This one is the item contains altogether 7 rating scales, and it is not in order, nor it is not like in a nice range. Sometimes it's just messy in terms of the order and everything. If I find something like this, I tend to collapse the similar items together. For example, the very difficult and difficult, I just sum them up together, or easy and very easy, just to make the line a little bit less messy as well. And then hopefully it can improve the look and also the categorization ability of that item. All right, talking about the item fit test. So with the Rasch analysis, it has a model. It can create a model that represented in the red line here. And it also gives us the boundary, which is on here, the green lines above and below. And the observed information is in blue. So the good fit item 1 is supposed to be lined within the boundary, but if it is unfit, it's gonna jaggle outside of the boundary. So what I have today is what I have filtered out, all those unfit and also collapsing items, and choose just only the dimensions that is fit and correlate with the item. So the first dimension that we're looking at is assistance for personal care, daily living, transferring, and mobility. So the ideal one is I would like to see if what appears on the developed data set would also appear on the validated data set too. But it is not always the case. We can find just only one, which is on the bathing and washing. And we would hope that we can see the item that appears having a tick on both GMFCS4 and GMFCS5, and we can find just only one, which is getting in and out of the motor vehicle. And what does it mean? It means that it's going to be a lot of discussion and also a lot of thoughts with Uni and also my supervisor. And if you would like to participate, please let me know. And discuss about whether which one we should keep. I mentioned earlier that we also consider the item importance. In the CPCHILD at the last section, before the personal information, they have the section asking about the importance of the items. So I use that information to looking at the items here. All the items presented on this slide and also the following few slides, they are rated as very important or most important. So they are quite good candidates in that sense. But again, there are not so many things that we can say at the moment. I'll conclude. We also looking at the correlation, and what we found is the assistant in bathing also correlate with the toileting activities and hygiene, correlate with the putting on taking off upper clothing, and the bathing correlate with the putting on of wearing footwear, and also using the wheelchair as well. And the toilet activities and hygiene correlate with putting on and wearing footwear. The taking off upper clothing also correlate with the wheelchair. So there are like complexity of the correlation within the domains as well. So that can help us a little bit. If we select one, we can potentially drop off the other, but again, it is not finalized at the moment. Okay, let's move on to the second dimension. The second dimension is the difficulty in personal care, daily living, transferring, and mobility. So what we found is like the bathing and washing is still quite popular and appears in 3 data sets. And putting on and taking off lower clothing is also appear on the 3 data sets as well. And we found some correlation between some of the items here. For example, the bathing and washing correlates with the changing in diapers and underwear, and changing diapers and underwear correlates with the putting on the clothes, either upper or lower. And putting on and taking off upper clothing correlates with the lower clothing, and putting on the lower clothing also correlated with wearing and putting on the footwear. Okay, the third dimension, which is the intensity and frequency of pain and discomfort. So in the original one, they asked just only the frequency, but the additional, they have the intensity as well. From factor analysis, it seemed like there are combination between these two, either it's the intensity or it's the frequency. Sometimes frequency appears in more. Sometimes just only the intensity appears in one of the data set. And there is some correlation that we found between the frequency of pain and discomfort while dressing or undressing to the intensity of the pain and discomfort during transfer or position change. And frequency of pain and discomfort during transfer or position change here correlates to the frequency of pain and discomfort while sitting. Frequency of pain and discomfort while sitting correlates to the intensity of pain and discomfort while sitting, and the frequency of the pain and discomfort while lying down also correlates with the intensity of the pain during the lying down as well. So the last 2 dimensions that I found are communication and social interaction, and intensity and frequency of emotion. For the communication and social interaction, we found that they able to understand you correlates with the able to be understood by you. And the other items, they are non-correlated to any other items, and the intensity frequency of the emotion appears in the developed dataset and also the GMFCS4. So that is all of my preliminary results so far. I'm sorry if I cannot give you the final one. But I hope that after I have a discussion with my supervisor and also experts, we would probably identify the final data sets of each dimensions as well. So it's come to the end. I know that we have a short time period for this webinar. So if you have any questions about the CPCHILD in general, or you have any specific questions for the webinar today, either for the Simon's presentation or for my presentation, feel free to email us at cpchief@mcri.edu.au, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at @cpchief. And the CPCHILD is funded by the National Health and Medical Research Council, and soon we will have our own website, so you can check for the update over there. All right, that's all for me. Thank you.